Hello, my dear friends. Today I'm going to start this conversation using a cricketing analogy. When a batsman sits in the pavilion, every delivery looks easy to defend, every boundary seems obvious, and the fielders appear out of position. But when you're standing at the crease, facing 90-mile-an-hour bouncers with the sun in your eyes and the nation's fate in your hands, survival and scoring require a very different kind of genius. In contemporary Jamaican politics, the pavilion is currently occupied by former Prime Minister Bruce Golden. He is free from the crushing weights of statecraft, foreign portfolio debts, and may I add, diplomatic tightropes. Golding recently spoke with a searing, unfiltered clarity, as it were, as he stood at the podium at an independence gala in Philadelphia. Mr. Golding launched a scathing critique against Washington. You may say rightly so. He spoke of a topsy-turvy global order, the resurrection of the Monroe Doctrine, unilateral tariffs, taxes on remittances, and a superpower dictating terms to small island states via middle-of-the-night decree. He noted quite candidly that some of us in the national interest, as he said, have to be restrained in what they say. Others of us in the national interest have to say what needs to be said. I guess that applies to him. It was brilliant, very brilliant, courageous speech, the kind of moral rallying cry that warms the blood of every Caribbean patriot. But sitting quietly at Jamaica's elm, watching from the pitch, is Prime Minister Andrew Holness. And Holness understands something fundamental about Golding's speech. He knows that Bruce Golden can give that speech precisely because he is in the pavilion. And Holness knows better than almost anyone alive what happens to a Jamaican leader who tries to deliver that same speech while standing at the wicket. Oh, he knows that very well. You see, to understand the quiet, calculated brilliance of Andrew Holness today, we have to journey back to 2010, 2010, a pivotal chapter in modern Caribbean history. You see, in the late 2000s, Bruce Golden stood where Holness stands now. Golding was an intellectual powerhouse, and he still is, a master debater and a statesman of immense policy depth. And so when Washington issued an extradition request for Tivoli Gardens Dudos Coke, Golding raised a fundamental constitutional defense. He argued then that the evidence gathered by American authorities relied on illegal wiretaps under Jamaican law, which directly violates constitutional rights, right? And principle was on Golding's side, no doubt about that. Jamaica's sovereign legal framework was on Golding's side as well, there's no doubt. Washington did not care. And so what followed was a brutal lesson in asymmetric global power. The United States did not engage in academic debates over legal issues. They applied raw, unrelenting diplomatic and economic pressure. Diplomatic visas were revoked for key officials. Jamaica's international credit standing, let's call it, trembled. The Manat Phillips and Phelps and Phillips scandal was ignited, and within months, the state was forced into a tragic violent military operation in Tivoli Gardens. And by late 2011, the fallout from that direct clash with Washington, as I recall, forced Bruce Golding to resign as Prime Minister, actually. And sitting nearby at the time would have been a very young, exceptionally sharp cabinet minister during those turbulent months. And his name would have been Andrew Holness. Now, Holness would have watched his political mentor get swallowed by the geopolitical machinery of global superpower. I mean, that's what America is. And he would have saw firsthand that when a small island nation like Jamaica engages in a chest-thumping contest with Washington, the island does not win. And we have to pay the bill, right? Principled grandstanding makes for great history books, but it leaves the domestic economy in ruins, as we saw many times over. And so watching Mr. Holness at work, I want to think that he would have vowed then that if he ever held the levers of power, he would play the game differently. I want to think that would have been his thought then. He was not going to be a martyr. He would be a master tactician. Now, fast forward from then to the contemporary, let's call it geopolitical landscape that we are living in today. Washington tightened its border controls, introducing a sweeping rule requiring visitor visa applicants from designated high overstay nations to post a staggering $20,000 refundable cash bond prior to entering the United States. On paper, Jamaica was a prime candidate for this crippling requirement. Because let's face the facts, for decades, Jamaica has contended with statistically high overstay rates for standard non-immigrant B1, B2 visas, visitors' visas, and thousands of Jamaicans travel annually to visit family in Florida, New York, wherever, Philadelphia, with a significant fraction remaining past their authorized departure dates. Now, under strict statistical algorithms, Jamaica should have been placed at the top of the $20,000 visa bond list alongside dozens of other developing nations. And there are a lot of Caribbean nations that are on that list. I think I count 4 or 5 of them. Now, had Jamaican been subjected to this $20,000 bond, US dollar bond, the economic impact would have been catastrophic. Working class families would be completely priced out of visiting loved ones. And when you look at it, small businesses relying on travel, trade, and diaspora commerce would collapse. And when you look at something very critical, remittance channels, which is the lifeblood of thousands of households in Jamaica, would face immense friction. No doubt, not asking that. We've seen it before. This movie has played many times. Yet, when the official US State Department list was finalized, Jamaica was conspicuously excluded. How did this happen? It was not an accident, I can tell you that. Nor was it simple good fortune. It was a direct result of Andrew Holness's calculated strategy of strategic alignment and quiet value creation. Man is a genius. You see, wildfire brands in the region urge Caribbean leaders to loudly denounce Washington. Mr. Holness understands how modern American power actually operates. We all know, it's clear, it is transactional, intelligence-driven, and focused on strategic utility. It is transactional. It's like some friendships we have. Instead of picking public fights that Jamaica cannot win, Holness positioned Jamaica as an indispensable security and economic partner in the Western Hemisphere. Look, when you look at the security intelligence integration between Jamaica and the United States, Holness expanded security collaboration on transactional gun trafficking, lottery scamming, we hardly hear about that again, and maritime interdiction. And so by proving that Jamaica's law enforcement agencies actively protect U.S. national security interests, he made Jamaica's stability a non-negotiable asset for Washington. You guys not giving the gentleman credit where it matters. And there's also economic respectability. Under Andrew Holness, Jamaica achieved unprecedented fiscal stability, slashing national debt to GDP from near 150% down towards 60%, building record foreign exchange reserves, and maintaining low, very low, record low unemployment, almost in the world when you look at the records. Washington treats economically stable states with a level of institutional respect that insolvent nations never receive. Look around the world, look at your history, read, and it's right there. And then there's what I would call the pragmatic balance. When US officials voice concern over Chinese infrastructure development, and we all jump on it and say, oh yeah, Ray, or other international partnerships in the Caribbean, Holness does not engage in dramatic anti-imperialist rhetoric. Instead, he negotiates quietly in closed boardrooms, leveraging, note that word, leveraging competing foreign investments to build ports, highways, and digital infrastructure without backing Jamaica into a what? A diplomatic corner. He has seen it before. And so because of this quiet, high-level diplomatic capital that he has accumulated, when U.S. policymakers drafted the 20,000 U.S. visa bond regulations, Jamaica possessed the institutional leverage to protect its citizens from inclusion. We are no longer with our hands begging Uncle Sam anything. Holness delivered the single greatest outcome for the Jamaican traveler without firing a single public shot. And so when you look at the contrast between Bruce Golding in 2026 and Prime Minister Andrew Holness today, it's not a story of who is the better strategist. It is a story of different roles on the same team. On the same team, but different roles. You see, what do I mean by that? You see, in the pavilion, Bruce Golding can call out the Monroe Doctrine, criticize remittance taxes, and demand equal respect from Washington. And his voice is vital. It provides the, should I say, intellectual counterweight and moral framing that the Caribbean, not just Jamaica, the Caribbean needs to maintain its dignity. Very good for him. But at the crease, Andrew Holness cannot afford the luxury of anger. He can't afford that. If Holness stands at a microphone in Kingston and repeats Golding's Philadelphia speech, word for word, let me tell you, Washington's response will not be applause. You know what it will be? It would be economic retaliation. Remittance taxes increased. Tourism flight surcharges slapped on American carriers flying to Montego Bay. Immediate inclusion on the restricted visa bond registers. Listen, the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, he understands that true intelligence in leadership is knowing when to let others speak the fire while you quietly secure the prize. And history will look back at this era of Jamaican governance, I believe, and recognize the subtle, extraordinary genius of Andrew Michael Holness. He studied the scars of those who came before him. That's what he's supposed to do, and he's doing it very well. He saw Michael Manley's ideological wars with the West in the 1970s that left the economy fractured. He would have seen Bruce Golding's, and firsthand he would have seen that, Bruce Golding's legal stand in 2010 that ended in political sacrifice. And so learning from both Holness and learning from both of them, he engineered a third path, pragmatic sovereignty, right? That's what I want to call it. He works with the powerful, not out of submission, but out of calculated self-interest. He shakes hands with world leaders, smiles for the global press, coordinates regional security, and ensures that when the massive tectonic plates of global power shift, Jamaica is safely anchored out of harm's way. That's a genius. When elder statesmen sit in the pavilion, and Patterson talks about this all the while, and they talk about the match should be played. They talk about how the match should be played. Andrew Holness simply nods, takes his guard, goes to the wicket, watches the ball closely, and quietly guides Jamaica to victory, 1 run at a time. Until next time, my dear friends, remember, out of many, one people. Let's keep on believing in Jamaica. Jamaica first, land we love. See you next time.
Jamaica, here we come.